So United Downs Raceway is due to close at the end of next year in order to make way for a new rum distillery slash geothermal centre slash cafe slash spa, and this is bad. Now if you're wondering why or have no idea what I'm talking about, stay tuned because I'm about to explain everything. So as I know I've mentioned in the past, racing has always been a massive part of my life. I myself used to race, my dad's been racing my entire life and still does, and even my granddad used to race back in the day. It's just something that's always been a part of my life and shaped who I am, where I want to be, what I want to pursue for my career, and basically if it wasn't for racing I don't know where I'd be today. Now I started racing when I was just 10 years old and continued to do so all the way up to 16, and at that time I made all my friends through racing, all of our family friends were made through racing, and to put it bluntly, racing was, and in some cases still is, my entire life. And a big part of all this is United Downs Raceway. Now this track in simple terms is what allowed me, my dad, and so many others to get into and continue racing. But before we get too far into the actual point of the video, I need to sort of set the scene for you all and tell you the story of how racing has impacted my life and how it can impact the lives of many others like me, and just sort of really show you why this track is so important. So I was born and raised in Cornwall, this tiny little county in the UK where most people just come on holiday, and it's something I'm very grateful for. You know, it's a beautiful and very safe place to live. However, its main downfall is just that we don't have much stuff, generally speaking, but especially in terms of motorsport. Now up country we have tracks like Brands Hatch, Snetterton, Alton Park, the list goes on, all full on big racetracks with big facilities spread out around the UK and not too far from most places. However, down here in Cornwall, to get to the nearest track like that would take around 5 to 6 hours each way, which just is very expensive and obviously not very logistical if you're trying to go racing. So instead, short oval racing, aka stock car racing, aka as most of you lot probably know it, banger racing, was pretty much the only option me and my family had if we wanted to get involved in the sport. Now my dad and my granddad both started racing around 20 years ago at a small dirt track known as Cornwall Raceways in St Kevin, a track which, like many others these days, no longer exists. Now Cornwall Raceways was small, a little rough around the edges, but honestly I loved it. Some of my fondest memories from growing up are going there and watching my dad and granddad race, and the whole family would turn up to support them. And alongside these great memories, it most importantly allowed my dad and my granddad to do something which they loved without breaking the bank and having to travel 100 odd miles up country. Now over the years my dad progressed from dirt and started racing on tarmac at Westwell Raceways in North Cornwall, which was much more of a facility and proper track, I guess you could say. And again, I have so many great memories from here, watching my dad win championships and just meeting so many people who were just as passionate about racing as I was. However, in 2009 this track was forced to close to build some holiday homes and a water park thing, which didn't actually happen until like 5 years later, which then left my dad and many other racers with just one other option if they wanted to continue racing on tarmac, and that was United Downs Raceway. And so just about 10 years ago now, my dad began racing at United Downs, and then in 2011 when I was just 10 years old, I myself began racing at the aforementioned Cornwall Raceways, which at this point were just starting to come under all this pressure to close. So after just 1 year of racing there, I moved to United Downs Raceway and began racing in the mini stocks, and I continued to do so until I turned 16 at the end of 2016. Now this next part of the story is the most important part. Over these years I've spent racing there, I was going through what many feel is the toughest part of your teenage years. You know, puberty, secondary school, all of that stuff, and I struggled with it. I was fat, I got bullied, I struggled to make friends, and all of this combined with the fact that I live in the middle of nowhere, which is just the nature of Cornwall, which I spent a lot of my free time as a teenager in my room, on my Xbox, doing nothing. However, being able to race allowed me to leave my room and go and do something I was really passionate about. Now even if I wasn't the fastest or the best or winning every race, the feeling of being out there on track in a race car cannot be topped for me. And this is the same for so many people just like myself who are passionate about motorsport. Racing also allowed me to make friends, other kids like me who love racing and were passionate about it, and they became my only real group of friends at the time. Moreover, racing got me into taking pictures and videos and all that stuff because I just walked around the pits with my camera and just took pictures and filmed what I enjoyed. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, without racing at that time, I wouldn't have had many, if any, real friends. I wouldn't have discovered my passion for talking and making videos about this sport, which in turn has led me to go to university to study a degree in the media industry with hopes of getting a career in motorsport. And most importantly, I wouldn't have been able to do something which I loved on a regular basis, if at all. And I would not have been able to get into racing if it wasn't for United Downs Raceway. Now the entire point of this video is just to sort of raise awareness of what's going on and try and give people a different point of view from someone who's actually been a part of this racing community. Now United Downs Raceway is currently looking like it's going to close the end of next year to build this gin distillery slash spa thing, and as great as that might be to some people, and it's sure to have its benefits, obviously else it wouldn't have been proposed, I just don't think it's fair to take the track away in return. Like I said, I've spent so many years of my life both watching and racing at the track, and even though I'm currently at university in Manchester and thus can't go much anymore, I'd still hate to see it go. It's Cornwall's only real connection to motor racing, and without it, myself and many others like me would not have got the chance to get into a sport we're passionate about. Now I understand that many others might not actually visit the circuit and have no interest in the sport whatsoever, and that's fine, but it should not be a reason to allow it to close. Imagine how you would feel if you or your child couldn't take part in or even watch a sport they love because others didn't care about it. For instance, I don't have any interest in football whatsoever, but that doesn't mean I want to see all the local clubs shut down and take away people's opportunities to do what they love. 11-year-old me needed United Downs Raceway, and I can't help but think there may be an 11-year-old now who needs it just as much. Now one point about the racetrack which many people always bring up, and have been ever since I can remember, is the noise. You know, the track's too loud. Now like I said, I live in the middle of nowhere, and that middle of nowhere happens to be on the literal doorstep of this racetrack. Like, genuinely, I could throw a rock from outside my front door into United Downs Raceway. And thus, I would argue that myself and my family know most of all people how loud this track can be. And yes, it can be a little loud sometimes. But honestly, the noise is not as bad as people say. And at the very least, they only race about once a month anyway these days. Moreover, all these local people, including my family, moved to this area knowing the racetrack was there. So realistically, even if it made the biggest noise in the world, nobody has a leg to stand on. It's like me moving next door to a football pitch and then complaining about the noise on match day. So Cornwall Council or anyone watching this who wants to see the track go, please just take a minute to think about all the local drivers and race fans alike who themselves rely on this track to watch and take part in their passion. Like I said, 11-year-old me needed United Downs Raceway to form friendships, to find my career goals and to pursue my passion. And there may be an 11-year-old who needs that just as much now. And United Downs Raceway can give this opportunity to them and so many other people, old and young, local and tourists, which I feel is just much more valuable than a gin distillery. So guys, apology for this long-winded, somewhat waffly type video. It's just a subject which I'm really passionate about, and it's consistently frustrated me for years the way in which many local people talk about this track. Now I know I'm posting this video on my YouTube channel, which is not just local people, you lot are all over the world, but I feel like it's a problem we can all sort of relate to. You know, we love racing, we love motorsport, and it's just such a hard hobby to get involved with, especially when you live in rural areas. But if you guys like to try and help save this track, please take a second to sign a petition I've linked down below. It only takes a minute and it could be the difference between this track going or staying for a few more years. I'm not gonna lie to you all, it's not looking great right now. The council seem very set on this idea, but hopefully if we sort of get the word out that this track actually means something to people and provides them with something they can not get within another 100-mile radius, maybe, just maybe, we can go racing at United Downs Raceway for many years to come. But for now, I've been Aiden, this has been Mr. Rain F1. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. I'll see you lot next time.